Hi everyone. Thank you for joining this panel session workshop called Elevating Children's Voices in AI Design, sponsored by the LEGO Group, and also participating is the Family Online Safety Institute, the Alan Turing Institute, and the Center for AI and Robotics at the United Nations Interregional Crime and Justice Research Institute. We've got an excellent workshop for you today, where you hear all about insights from the latest research on the impact of AI on children, and also hear from young people themselves about their experiences and their hopes. So this is just a quick run of the show. We're going to start with a message from the children about their views on generative AI, and then we're going to hear some of the latest research from Stephen Balcom, who's the founder and CEO of the Family Online Safety Institute, Maria Ira, who's an AI expert at the Center for AI and Robotics in the UN, Vari Aitken, a senior ethics research fellow at the Alan Turing Institute. Then we'll move on to a panel discussion and questions. Please feel free to ask questions. We want to take them from the audience, both in the room and online. And we'll also have a young person, Zara Amjad, join us to share her insights and ask the panel questions herself. But without further ado, let's get away, and we're going to start with this video message from young people across the UK. We're not disclosing names just for safety reasons, but please play the message and the video when you're ready.
AI is extremely advantageous when used correctly, but when misused, can have devastating effects on humans. That's why we must view AI as a tool to aid us, not to replace us.
Right now, students are memorizing facts for exams, while AI is outpacing that system entirely. Rather than banning AI in schools, we should teach students how to use it efficiently. Skills like fact-checking, critical thinking, and prompt engineering aren't optional anymore, they're essential. We need to prepare students for a world where AI is everywhere, teaching them to use it efficiently while not relying on its output.
I feel that AI can help humanity in the future, but it also can harm, so it must be used in an ethical manner.
I find AI really fun, but sometimes it's not safe for children because it gives bad advice.
Privacy is not a luxury, it's a basic right. The data that AI collects is valuable, and if it's not protected, it can be used to hurt the very people it's supposed to help. The goal cannot be profit, it must be people.
LLMs contain thousands of liters of water during training, and GPT-3 required over 10,000 GPUs over 15 days. Hundreds of LLMs are being developed, and their environmental impact is immense. Like all powerful tools, AI must be managed responsibly, or its promise could become a problem.
The choices that governments and AI developers make today will not just affect the technology, but our lives, our communities, and the world that we leave for our next generation. Young people like me must be part of this conversation. We aren't just the future, we're here now. Our voices, our experiences, and our hopes must matter in shaping this technology.
I think adults should listen to children more because children have lots of good ideas as well as adults with AI.
Artificial intelligence is a rising tide, but tides follow the shape of the land. So we must shape that land. We must set the direction, and we must decide together the kind of world that we want to build. Because if we don't, that tide may wash away everything that we value most: fairness, privacy, truth, and even trust.
AI holds this incredible promise, but that promise will only be fulfilled if we build it with trust, with care, with respect, and with a clear vision of the kind of world that we want to create together. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much to all the young people there that put together those pretty powerful messages. I mean, from our perspective at the LEGO Group, and also I know from all my co-panelists, this is all about elevating children's voices and not being patronizing to their views, making sure they're part of decision making. And it's great to see such eloquent young people, who have real ideas about the future of AI, and we're here to kind of discuss them more. I'm going to pass over to Stephen Balkon now to talk about his latest research from the Family Online Safety Institute about the impact of AI on children.
Well, thank you very much, Adam, and thank you for convening us and bringing us here. Really appreciate it. For those of you who are not familiar, FOSI, the Family Online Safety Institute, we are a 501c3 charitable organization based in the United States, but we work globally. Our mission is to make the online world safer for kids and their families. And we work in what we call the 3 Ps of policy, practices, and parenting. So that's enlightened public policy, good digital practices, and digital parenting, which is probably the most difficult part of this, where we try to empower parents to confidently navigate the web with their kids. And the web increasingly is AI infused, shall I say. I want to begin by just saying that 2 years ago, in 2023, we conducted a 3-country study called Generative AI, Emerging Habits, Hopes, and Fears. And at the time, we believe it was the first survey done around generative AI, given that ChatGPT had emerged only a few months before. And we talked to parents and teens in the US, in Germany, and in Japan. And some of the results surprised us. And you can see in the slide, and I'll talk to those data points. First thing that we found, which surprised us, was that teens thought that their parents knew more about generative AI than they did. With previous trends, particularly in the early days of the web and then Web 2.0 and social media, kids were always way ahead of their parents in terms of the technology. But in this case, a sizable share of teens in all 3 countries recorded that their parents had a better understanding than they did. And we dug a little deeper and found that, of course, many of the parents were struggling to figure out how to use Gen AI at work, or at the very least, try to figure it out before Gen AI took over their jobs. But anyway, that was the first interesting trend. Parents, for their part, said that they used it mainly for analytical tasks, such as using Gen AI platforms as a search engine and as a language translator, and that's only increased over the last couple of years. Teens mostly were looking for it for efficiency-boosting tasks, such as proofreading and summarizing long texts to make them shorter and faster to read. And we've already seen some interesting developments in those 2 years where ChatGPT is actually, instead of just being used to proofread and analyze their work, teens and young people are increasingly using Gen AI to do their work for them, their essays, their homework, whatever. In terms of concerns, job loss was the #1 concern for both parents and teens, and also the spread of false information, which has only been accelerating since we did that study. Other concerns, loss of critical thinking skills was the parents' #3, whereas kids were more concerned about new forms of cyberbullying, again, which is something we've been seeing since we did that study. There was a lot of excitement, too. I mean, obviously concerns, but parents and teens both shared an optimism that Gen AI will, above all else, help them learn new things. Very excited also for AI's potential to bring progress in science and healthcare, and to free up time to reducing boring tasks as well as progress in education. But then when we asked them about who was responsible for making sure that teens had a safe Gen AI experience, interestingly enough, parents believed that they were had to take the greatest responsibility for ensuring their teens' safety. And this was particularly true in the United States, where I'm afraid to say we have less trust in our government to guide and to pass laws. Other countries were more heavily reliant on their own governments and tech companies. And then we asked the question, what do parents and teens want to learn? And what are the topics that would help them navigate these conversations and address their concerns about Gen AI more broadly? And top of the list was transparency of data practices, and secondly, steps to reveal what's behind Gen AI and how data is sourced and whether it can be trusted was a key element. Another area they felt that industry should take note of, that data transparency is top of mind for parents and teens, and that companies should take strides to be more forthcoming about how users' data is being collected and used, which I think is something that we'll hear more about in the next presentation. And then fast forward to this year, we conducted what we call the Online Safety Survey, now titled Connected and Protected, in the United States in the end of 2024 and into 2025. And this was a survey more about online safety trends in general, but we did include questions about Gen AI in the research. And a basic question, do you think that AI will have a positive or negative impact on each of the following areas? And these areas were creativity, academics, media literacy, online safety, and cyberbullying. And in each of these categories, kids were more likely to be optimistic about AI's impact on society. Think about that. The kids felt more optimistic than their parents that AI was going to have a positive impact. Now, parents weren't necessarily pessimistic across the board. About half of parents thought that AI would have a positive impact, but 60% of both parents and kids thought AI would have a negative impact on cyberbullying. And this, of course, is where we see stitched together videos, a kid's face put onto all sorts of awful graphic images that are then spread around the school. When it comes to online safety, parents and kids were split down the middle, with just over half of both groups reporting that AI would have a positive impact on online safety. And when comparing data from wave 1 of the survey with wave 2, we saw that parents in the second wave were much more likely to say that their child had used Gen AI for numerous tasks, including help with school projects, image generation, brainstorming, and more. In the first wave of this survey, we asked participants to identify if images were real or AI generated. Each respondent was presented with 3 images from a lineup of 6 to ensure accurate data. Less than half of respondents correctly identified 2 or more images, and you're going to see an example of that in a moment. Less than 10% of respondents correctly identified all 3 images. And we'll see how well you guys do in a minute. On the bright side, over 4 or 5 respondents correctly identified at least 1 image. And again, this survey was done before Google's video generator came out, Yayo, which is just mind-boggling how fast the developments are in this space. And some of the videos and images that have come out of that video generator are quite astounding. So based on this study, FOSI recommends the following: that technology companies be much more transparent about AI technology, providing families with a clear explanation of why a Gen AI system produced a certain answer, why an algorithm is recommending certain content, and what the limitations of AI tools like chatbots are. Industry should also learn from past mistakes and design AI tools with children in mind, not as an afterthought. And industry needs to fund research and programs that will help children learn AI literacy so they are better able to discern real content from AI-generated content and make informed decisions based on that knowledge. So now I'm going to test you guys on these 3 images. And have a look. And just have a show of hands. I don't know how we're going to do this online, but how many of you think that the first image is real? Any takers for real? Okay. How many for AI generated? All right, more real than AI. Okay, second one. AI? Real. All right. And the last one. Real or AI? All right. Well, you guys did pretty well. The first one is a real painting. I've got the actual citation for you if you want to find out who the artist was. And yes, the second two were both Gen AI generated. Interestingly enough, in our study, more men than women thought number two was real. Maybe that was wishful thinking. You can make your own conclusions. I think 85 to 90% of women immediately saw that she was not real. And if you look closely, her earrings don't match, which, again, I didn't see that. So anyway, back to you.
Thanks, Stephen. I performed poorly on that test, I will admit. So next up, we've got Maria, and she's an AI expert at the United Nations. It's a complex acronym. The United Nations Interregional Crime and Justice Research Institute and their Center for AI and Robotics. Maria, please take it away. She's joining us online.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me and see my slides? Everything is working?
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Adam. And good afternoon, everyone. First of all, I would like to thank you, Adam, and the LEGO group for the invitation to be part of this very interesting workshop. So I work at the Center for AI and Robotics of UNICRI. Indeed, is a complex, long term for a UN research institute that focuses on reducing crime and violence around the world. And the center has a particular mandate to understand how AI contributes to both reduce crime and also to how it can also be used by malicious actors for criminal purposes, for example. And so now I will present you a project that we have together with Walt Disney to promote AI literacy among children and parents. And we focus on AI, but particularly on generative AI. So to start this project, we were trying to understand the parental perspectives on the use and the impact of Gen AI on adolescents, a little bit as Fauzi was doing. So we distributed a survey worldwide, and the survey was targeting parents, and we received replies from 19 countries across Europe, Asia, Africa, and the Americas. So we just published this paper 3 days ago. The paper includes all the conclusions from this survey. It's free access, and you can access it via the QR code. But I already brought you here the main conclusions from this survey. So we had two main conclusions. So the first one, we understood that there is a lack of awareness from parents and the low communication between parents and their children on how adolescents are using generative AI tools. And we were targeting parents of adolescents of 13 to 17 years old. And so on the left, we have a graph. I don't know if you can see it, but I will describe a little bit. So this graph is parents' insights on teenagers' generative AI use across different activities. And so on the first smaller graph, we have the activity is to search or get information about the topic. And so we can see that more than 80% of parents report that their kids are using generative AI to search information about the topic. And they are also using it quite often to help with school assignments. So for more academic purposes, we can see that parents are aware that their kids are using generative AI. However, for more personal uses, such as using generative AI as a companion or to ask for help to personal or health problems, we can see that the most popular reply was either I disagree, so they feel that their kids never use generative AI for these more personal purposes. And the second most popular reply was I don't know. So this confirms a little bit, although we were saying right now that parents are becoming more aware, but still we can see that as a worldwide distribution, a lot of parents still don't know if their children are using generative AI for more personal uses. The second conclusion is we can see here on the graph on the right. And so we started by it's basically, we understood that parents who use, I'm already giving the conclusion, so parents who use generative AI tools feel more positive about the impact that this technology can have on their children's development. And so we can see on the graph on the right, so we have started by dividing parents according to their familiarity with generative AI tools. And so we divided into regular users, the ones who use generative AI every day or a few times per week, sporadic users, the ones who use generative AI a few times per month or less, and the unfamiliar audience who never tried or never heard about this technology. And so we can see that the regular users, so the yellow bars here, so feel much more positive on the impact that the technology can have on critical thinking, on their career, on their social work, and also on their general impact that this technology can have on kids' development. While unfamiliar parents, so the blue ones here, were negative in all these fields. So this shows that when parents are familiar with the technology, when they use the technology, they see it differently. And thinking and viewing this technology in a positive way also helps children to use it in a more positive way and not fearing this technology so much. And so besides engaging with parents, we also engaged with children. And we organized a workshop in a high school to collect the perspectives from the adolescents. And I brought here some interesting comments and feedback from the children. So when we asked them where did they learn about generative AI, they mentioned friends, they mentioned TikTok, my 20-year-old brother. So we can see that they are not learning how to use these tools in schools or from other trustworthy sources, let's say. And when we ask them, what's one thing that adults should know about how teenagers are using generative AI, their replies were, they use it to cheat in school, kids use AI to make everything, or adults should know more about it. And I think these were also very interesting to see their feedback, and it helped us a lot to develop the main outcomes of this project. So we basically produced 2 AI literacy resources that will be launched in 2 weeks at the AI for Good Summit. So on the left, we have a 3D animation movie for adolescents that explains what AI is, how generative AI works, and very importantly, that not all the answers can be found in these chatbots. And on the right, we have a guide for parents on AI literacy to support them in guiding their children to use this technology in a responsible way. So to communicate, so we focus a lot on the communication, which was something that we concluded from the initial survey, focusing on the communication about the potential risks and also to explore the benefits of this technology together to make parents engage with children and to learn together, because we are all learning on this. The technology is really advancing in a very fast pace, so we will all need to be on top of this development. So if you'd be interested, both resources will be available online soon. So if you'd like to receive them, just reach out to me. I leave my email here. Also, if you have any other questions, I'm happy to reply. So thank you for your time and attention.
Thanks, Maria. And now we have Vari Atkin, Senior Ethics Fellow at the Alan Turing Institute, to discuss research that LEGO Group was actually very proud to sponsor.
Thank you, Adam. And thank you for the invitation to join this discussion today. I'm really excited to be a part of this really important panel discussion. So as Adam said, I'm a Senior Ethics Fellow at the Alan Turing Institute. The Turing Institute is the UK's National Institute for AI and Data Science. And at the Turing, I have the great privilege of leading a programme of work on the topic of children and AI. The central driver, the central rationale behind all our work in the Children and AI team at the Turing is the recognition that children are likely to be the group who will be most impacted by advances in AI technologies, but they're simultaneously the group that are least represented in decision-making about the ways that those technologies are designed, developed and deployed, and also in terms of policy making and regulation relating to AI. We think that's wrong. We think that needs to change. Children have a right to a say in matters that affect their lives, and AI is clearly a matter that is affecting their lives today and will increasingly do so in the future. So over the last 4 years, our team, the Children and AI team at the Alan Turing Institute, have been working on projects to develop and demonstrate approaches to meaningfully bring children and young people into decision-making processes around the future of AI technologies. So we've had a series of projects with a number of different collaborations, including with UNICEF, with the Council of Europe Steering Committee on the Rights of the Child, the Scottish AI Alliance and Children's Parliament, and most recently with the LEGO Group. So I want to share some kind of headline findings from our most recent research, which has looked at the impact of generative AI use on children, and particularly on children's well-being, and also share some messages from the Children's AI Summit, which was an event that we held earlier this year. So firstly, from our recent research, and this was a project that was supported by the LEGO Group, and looked at the impacts of generative AI use on children, particularly children between the ages of 8 and 12. There were 2 work packages in this project. The first work package was a national survey, so we surveyed around 800 children between the ages of 8 and 12, as well as their parents and carers, and surveyed 1,000 teachers across the UK. Now, this research revealed that around a quarter of children, 22% of children between the ages of 8 and 12, reported using generative AI technologies, and the majority of teachers, so 3 out of 5 teachers, reported using generative AI in their work. But we found really stark differences between uses of AI within private schools and state-funded schools, and again, this is in the UK context, with children in private schools much more likely both to use generative AI, but also report having information and understanding about generative AI. And this points to potentially really important issues around equity in access to the benefits of these technologies within education. We also found that children with additional learning needs or additional support needs were more likely to report using generative AI for communication and for connection. And also from the teacher survey, we found that there was significant interest in using generative AI to support children with additional learning needs. This was also a finding that came out really strongly in Work Package 2 of this research. Work Package 2 was direct engagement with children between the ages of 9 and 11 through a series of workshops in primary schools in Scotland. And throughout these workshops, we found that children were really excited about the opportunity to learn about generative AI. They were really excited about the ways that generative AI could potentially be used to support them in education. And again, there was a strong interest, particularly in the ways that generative AI could be used to support children with additional learning needs. But we found also that in these workshops, where we invited children to take part in creative activities, and we gave them the option of using either generative AI tools or more traditional tactile art materials, we found overwhelmingly that children chose to use traditional tactile hands-on art materials. And you'll see on the quote at the bottom, one of the sentiments that was expressed very often in these workshops was this feeling that art is actually real. And children felt that they couldn't say that about AI art because the computer did it, not them. And I think this reveals some really important insights into the choices that children make about using digital technologies, and a reminder that those choices are not just about the digital technology, but about the alternative options available and the context and environments in which children are making those choices. Through the research, children also highlighted a number of really important concerns that they had around the impacts of generative AI, and I just want to flag some of these briefly now. One of the major themes that came out through this work was a concern around bias and representation in AI models and the outputs of AI models. Over the course of 6 full-day workshops in schools in Scotland, we were using generative AI tools, and in this case it was OpenAI's ChatGPT and DALL-E, to create a range of different outputs. And we found that each time children wanted an image of a person, it would by default create an image of a person that was white, and predominantly a person that was male. Children identified this themselves themselves, and they were very concerned about this. They were very upset about this. But particularly for children of colour who were not represented through the outputs of these models, we found that children became very upset when they didn't feel represented. And in many cases, children who didn't feel represented by the outputs of models chose not to use generative AI in the future and didn't want to use generative AI in the future. So it's not just about the impact on the individual children, it's also about adoption of these tools and how representation feeds into that. Another big area of concern was the environmental impacts of generative AI. And this is something that we found has come out really consistently through all the work we've done engaging children and young people in discussions around AI. Where children have awareness or access to information about the environmental impacts of generative AI models, they often choose not to use those models. And we found that in these workshops that where children learned about the environmental impact, particularly the water consumption of generative AI models and the carbon footprint of generative AI models, they chose not to use those models in the future. And they also pointed to this as an area in which they wanted policymakers and industry to take urgent action to address the environmental impacts of these models, but also to provide transparent, accessible information about the environmental impacts of those models. Finally, were also big concerns around the ways that generative AI models can produce inappropriate and sometimes potentially harmful outputs. And children felt that they wanted to make sure that there were systems in place to ensure that children had access to age-appropriate models that wouldn't risk exposure to harmful or inappropriate content. Now, finally, I just wanted to also share some messages from the Children's AI Summit, which was an event that we held in February of this year. This was an event that my team at the Alan Turing Institute ran in partnership with Queen Mary University of London, and it was supported by the LEGO Group, Elevate Great, and EY. The event brought together 150 children and young people between the ages of 8 and 18 from right across the UK for a full day of discussions, exploring their hopes and fears around how AI might be used in the future, and also setting out their messages for what they wanted to see on the agenda at the AI Action Summit in Paris. From the Children's AI Summit, we produced the Children's Manifesto for the Future of AI, and I'd really encourage you to look it up and have a read. It's written entirely in the words of the children and young people who took part, and it sets out their messages for what they want world leaders, policymakers, developers to know when thinking about the future of AI. I just want to finish with a couple of quotes from the children and young people who took part in the Children's AI Summit. And their message is really for you all here today about what needs to be taken on board when thinking about the role of children in these discussions. So firstly from Ethan, who was 16, and he says, "You'll write the laws, but we'll bear the cost. Hear us, engage with us, and remember, AI may be artificial, but the consequences of your choices are all too real." And secondly, we have a quote from Alexander, Ashfika, Ava, and Mustafa, who were all aged 11, and they presented jointly at the Children's AI Summit. And they said, "We don't want AI to make the world a place where only a few people have everything and everyone else has less. I hope you can make sure that AI is used to help everyone to make a safe, kind, and fair world." And I think that sums up the ethos of the Children's AI Summit perfectly, and is also a mission that we really all need to get behind and make a reality. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thanks, Fari, and to Stephen and Maria as well for just some really exciting research findings. We're going to move towards a panel session now. So we'll take questions from the audience, both in person and online. So if you'd like to think about some questions, feel free to then ask them. If you're online, you can ask the online moderator, Lise, who will ask those questions for you. I've got a few myself, though, and we're actually waiting for Zara, a young representative, to join. I think there's been some technical difficulties there, so hopefully she'll be joining us soon so we can hear directly from her. But to start things off, I think we heard a lot in the research. Kids are already using AI. Children are already using AI across multiple different contexts for multiple different purposes. I think I just want to take a step back and just ask, are children ready for AI, or is AI ready for children? Just as an open question to all the panelists here.
Well, I'll give that one a go. I mean, I think some of the big challenges that we're finding so far is that these tools, we know that children of all ages are already interacting with AI on a daily basis. And that starts with kind of infants, preschool kids playing with smart toys and smart devices in the home, through to generative AI technologies and the ways that AI is also used online on social media. And a lot of the problems here is that these tools are being used by children and young people of all ages, but they're not designed for children and young people. And we know that the ways that children interact with AI systems are often very different from how adults engage with those tools, or digital technologies more generally, and often very different from how the designers or developers of those systems anticipate that those tools might be used. And then I think there's possibly a risk that we then put the kind of the burden or the expectation on children and young people themselves to kind of police those online interactions, to take approaches to be safe online, whereas actually the burden has to be on the developers, the policymakers, and the regulators to make sure that those systems are safe and that there are age appropriate tools and systems available for children to access and benefit from.
Yeah, this feels like deja vu all over again. I was very much involved in the Web 1.0 back in the mid-90s, and it became very clear that the World Wide Web was not designed with kids in mind. And we had to sort of retrofit websites and create parental controls for the first time, but never really caught up. And then Web 2.0 came along around 2005, 2006, and sites like MySpace and then Facebook, again, just took off, first in colleges, then in high schools, then all the way down to elementary grade school level. Once again, not with kids in mind. And we're just repeating that one more time with this AI revolution. And there's a great deal of concern, particularly around the amount of what kids will do in terms of trusting chatbots, for instance. We're seeing a lot of emotional attachments of quite young kids talking to chatbots, thinking that they are real, and sort of unloading their own personal thoughts to them. And for older teens and for college-based kids, the fact that they're using Gen AI for doing their work, doing their homework, doing their projects and essays, meaning that they're not developing critical thinking skills, but going straight to Gen AI for results and for that. That probably is of greater concern.
Thank you, Stephen. Maria, do you have any contributions to that question?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, definitely with everyone that was said. Just adding that not just the AI systems were not ready, or the kids are not ready for the AI, but also the whole environment. So in terms of AI literacy, most of the people don't really understand what is AI, how does it work? Is it like a type of magic? But at the end of the day, it's actually just computations and statistical models. And so there is not just the technology that was not developed, but is the whole environment. So in terms of AI literacy in schools and so on.
Thank you. I've definitely got some more questions, but I can see we have someone in the audience that would like to ask a question. So please introduce yourself and ask the panel.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Mariana from Datasphere Initiative. I hope you can hear me well. Okay. So we are the Datasphere Initiative. We have a youth project that has been engaging young people for a couple of years. And I wanted to thank you all for the amazing presentations and the amazing work that you're doing. And I think it's actually very, very important that we have all of these stats, numbers, stories, experiences. And thank you also for starting with a video from children and closing up with quotes. And this introduction is just to say that we're restarting a new phase in our project, and we're starting to focus on influencers, and not just kids that are becoming influencers, children that are being sometimes turned into influencers by their parents, that have also mind-blowing stats. Adults that are becoming influencers and that are directly influencing children, not only to consume and buy their products or other products, but we're also looking into AI agents as influencers in this digital space. And that, as I think one of the girls that was sharing her story was saying, it's not just that they're influencing or that are generally affecting their lives, digital lives, but it's actually their very concrete lives and the relationships that they have with each other. So I just wanted to ask, and I think that Stephen was already mentioning a bit around the influence of other children and the maybe even like social media, and if you had any questions or research done around how are influencing or influencers shaping the space and how children and youth are experiencing social media in general, and then how did you start, or if you started to ask about AI agents and how is that influencing particularly the relationships that they have in real life again. I think that was a bit of like a lot of questions, but thanks again so much.
Yeah, I'll try to respond to part of what you were saying. I mean, the technology is moving so fast that it's incredibly hard for the research to keep up, is number one. No, we haven't yet asked about AI bots being an influencing factor, although we are anecdotally seeing kids, teens, young adults, and adults using AI for therapy. I mean, literally talking through on hours at a time deep emotional issues that they have and getting responses from ChatGPT and others in a way that is very positive and self-reinforcing, but also extremely potentially dangerous in the sense that, an artificial intelligence bot will not know, is not human, and will not be able to pick up on body cues and all the rest of it, and may not actually be able to challenge you in a way that a real human therapist will. One other point I'll get to quickly, the whole influencing world. There's new legislation that's been popping up in the United States, at least, that will at least compensate kids who've been part of a family, vlog all their childhood, a bit like kid movie stars were back in the 30s. So now at least they're getting compensation and a right to delete their videos that they had no true consent to be a part of when they turn 18. But there's a broader societal question about monetizing our kids. We are not in favor of that, particularly because there's no way that a 7, 8, 9-year-old can give consent. Yes, please film me every day and post this online so that I can go through college and you don't have to pay, Mom and Dad. So anyway, maybe we'll talk later because you had a lot of different points in there.
Maybe I could just pick up on I guess how this relates to the growth of AI companions and Judgeify in this context. I suppose influence isn't necessarily something that we've looked at so much in our research, which is mostly focused on 8 to 12-year-olds. Not to say that they're not already been influenced, and many of them are, certainly 12-year-olds beginning to be on social media. But AI companions, I think, is a really, just an area that we really need to urgently get to grips with. There are more and more of these AI companions, AI personas that are clearly being marketed towards children and young children. And we don't fully yet know what the impacts of that might be, but there's growing research. We need more action to be taken on this, including AI companions that are marketed as addressing challenges of loneliness, but then potentially creating a dependence or a connection to something that is very much kind of outside of society and community and potentially exacerbating those challenges, which I think is a particular set of risks to address. In the Children's AI Summit, which were, again, children in the Children's AI Summit between the ages of 8 and 18, and among teenagers at Children's AI Summit, there was a lot of interest in potentially using AI companions to support children in terms of supporting them with mental health. And there was a lot of interest in how that could be done. But importantly, what would it mean to design that and develop these tools in ways that are age appropriate, that are safe, that have children's well-being and children's mental health as part of the design process, as a key element in the design process. At the moment, the risk is that these tools are being developed and promoted without children's well-being and children's interests in mind in the development process, but they are increasingly being relied on and used for those purposes. So I think, yeah, it's an area that we're seeing a lot of interest from children and young people, but with a recognition that this needs to be done responsibly, carefully, and cautiously.
Thanks. Leander, I see you've got a question. Please.
Thanks, Adam. Hello, everyone. I'm Leander Barrington Leach, Executive Director of the Five Rights Foundation. Thank you so much for the presentations and for the research you're doing, which is absolutely fabulous. I could ask lots of things and I could comment on lots of things, but I just wanted to take the opportunity, given what you were saying indeed about the importance of designing AI with children's rights in mind, from the start of raising awareness that there are regulatory and technical tools out there to do this, and in particular the Children in AI Design Code, which the Alan Turing Institute also contributed to, which was work that brought AI experts and children's rights experts and many others together over a very long period of time to develop a technical protocol for innovation that puts children's rights at the centre. So I just wanted to draw awareness to this, to say that we all agree that it's so important, but to know that there are actually tools out there to make it happen. Thank you.
Thanks, Leandra. Lisa, I think we've got an online question.
We do indeed. Katerina, who is studying law in the UK, AI law specifically, are asking a question. Should AI ethics for children be separated from general AI ethics? That's the first question. Second question, do you think there should be state-level legislation or policies for AI systems targeting specifically children? Thank you.
Maria, I'll pass to you first if you want to answer either of those questions.
Yes, sure. Thank you for your question. Yeah, it's very relevant indeed, and definitely yes. Children should have separated legislation. Legislation should target children because children don't have exactly the same consent. Let's say, for example, the awareness of consent. There are several principles that cannot be fully applicable from adults to children. So we definitely need to have the child's rights in mind when developing this legislation.
Thanks, Maria. Stephen or Mari, do you want to comment on just one of you, because we've got a few questions and I do want to get everyone.
My points.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree that children have particular rights, they have particular needs, unique needs and experiences that should be addressed. I guess one other part of it is that if we design this well for children, and if we get the regulatory requirements, policy requirements right for children, this benefits well beyond children as well. An AI system that's designed well with children in mind is also going to be is also going to have benefits in terms of other vulnerable users and wider user groups. So I think yes, there are unique perspectives, unique considerations that should be addressed, but the benefits go beyond that.
So before I go to other questions in the room, I just got really quick responses from the panel. Leandra mentioned the age-appropriate AI design code, which is a tool to help companies think about how to build AI in a child rights and well-being way. What do you think are the research gaps? We've got tools like this. What is the one, to your mind, outstanding research gap that needs to be addressed before we can really be confident that there is a child-centric approach to AI development? Just a quick question. Maybe reflect on that as we take some other questions, and then I'll come back later, because I do want to think about the research gaps and a path forward to really understanding how to do this responsibly. So let's take a question from this gentleman here.
Hello, my name is June Beck from Youth for Privacy. We are a youth NGO focused on digital privacy. So we want to ask about a lot of children's rights in AI. It's, at least in the context of privacy, there's been some legislation, for example, where under the aim of protecting children's data, for example, or safeguarding children online, there's been concerns about those kind of laws having some privacy issues. I was wondering if, would there be some things that, under the aim of protecting children when it comes to AI, for example, that could be some other kind of rights that could be in question or violated. So do you suppose there anything that we should be aware of?
So you're talking about the trade-off between protecting children's rights and maybe some other issues that might be developing. Yeah, Stephen, Maria?
Pretty much, I went back to 1995. I mean, we've been struggling with this dichotomy between safety and privacy since the beginning of the web. In other words, the more safe you are, perhaps the more you're giving up in terms of private information. Or the more private you are, maybe you're not as safe as you could be. So trying to find a way that balances both has been at the core, certainly, of the work of my organization, but many others. And it is extremely hard for lawmakers to get that balance right. And then if you come from the US, you then have this other axis, which is called free expression, which adds another layer of complexity too, because you want people to be private, you want people and kids to be safe, but you also want, one of the 5 rights, by the way, is the right to say what you want to be able to say. So it's just going to be something which I don't think we'll ever completely get right, and we're going to constantly have to compromise, but I don't think it's beyond our ability to reach those compromises.
Just noting time, I might move on to this gentleman here.
Hi, my name is Ryan. I'm 17 years old, and I'm a youth ambassador of the One Pal Foundation in Hong Kong. So we're advocating for digital sustainability and access in Hong Kong. So thank you for the wonderful presentations. My question is, AI for people with learning disabilities was raised as a significant prospect of AI by children from 8 to 12 years old. So how can generative AI be further leveraged for the support and inclusion of people with disabilities? Thank you.
Thank you. I know that's a key finding from your research, Vari, if you want to elaborate.
Yeah, it's come out really strongly from all the work we've done engaging children and young people that this is an area where they're really excited about the potential, and they want to see AI developed in ways that will support children with additional learning, additional support needs, and with disabilities. And I guess what's important, I mean, particularly in the education context, supporting children with additional learning needs, there's huge promise here. And teachers in our study recognise that, children in our study recognise that. But again, I think some of the challenges or current limitations is that there's a lot of kind of edtech tools that are being pushed and promoted that are not necessarily beginning with a sound understanding of the challenges that they're seeking to address, or a sound understanding of the needs of children with additional learning needs. I think we need to start developing these technologies from that place. You know, if we want to develop something to support children with additional learning needs, it has to be grounded in a sound understanding of what those needs are and what the challenges are. And then maybe generative AI provides tools that provide a solution, but not always, not necessarily. I think we have to start with identifying the problems and challenges and develop those tools responsibly to effectively address those challenges. That requires having expertise from teachers, from children, from specialists in these areas to guide the development of those tools and technologies. But it's definitely an area where there's huge promise, and where it could be used really effectively and really valuably.
Thank you.
Great to have a youth representative at the IGF. I mean, my gosh, I was probably playing unsafe video games when I was 17 rather than going to international forums. So incredibly impressive. Lisa, you've got a question from online.
I do indeed. So I have a question from Grace Thompson from CAIDP, who's asking, how is UNICRI?
UNICRI. Yep.
Thank you. And the other entities represented in the panels working with national government officials on capacity building to school principals, counseling teams, and the entire ecosystem to prepare adults in protecting our children and adolescents.
Maria, I think that's one for you.
Yeah, sure. Thank you for your question, Grace. So as I was showing before, we are developing AI literacy resources for parents. So we will try to disseminate this as much as possible. So it's basically recommendations for parents to guide their children on the use of this technology. So this is one thing. Then we are also trying to work with governments and particularly with the judges, law enforcement, to promote AI literacy, basically. So we do a lot of capacity building to law enforcement officers worldwide to explain what is AI, how to use AI in a responsible way. So we have guidelines developed with the Interpol, but this is more on the law enforcement side, and we would love to explore more to other representatives from the government and try to implement AI literacy workshops and programs in schools. So we have started this workshop in a school in the Netherlands which was also to collect adolescents' perspectives, but also we also had a component on explaining what AI is, what are the risks, what are the benefits, and how some best practices to use it in the best way. And we would love to scale up this, and we are right now in conversations with the Netherlands and with other countries to understand if we can really develop a full program that can be implemented in schools. But everything is being developed. The technology is really recent. Everyone is trying to be prepared for this, and we are still working on that.
Thanks, Maria. We'll take one final question from the room, and then I will do a quick lightning round among the panelists to answer what's one research area we still need to explore to move towards child-centric AI, and what's one thing companies can do right now to make AI more appropriate for children. Quick answers to those two questions, but please, the lady here.
Hello, my name is Elisa. I'm also from the One Pile Foundation, just like Ryan. I see a big issue in children communicating with AI about like their personal issues, as children are in a way more vulnerable situation and position, and AI is like the bigger person in that conversation. So my question is, how can we design AI so that it doesn't increase like that power imbalance between like the child and the all-known AI?
I didn't quite get the end of that question. Sorry, just repeat your question.
My question is, how can we design AI that that it doesn't that the independency of the child is increased, and that there is no power imbalance between the child and the AI?
You want to try that?
Yeah, I mean, I think in all these interactions, one thing that's absolutely crucial is the transparency around the nature of the AI system. Transparency also around how data might be being collected through those interactions and potentially being collected by the model or used to train future model, or collected by the organisation, the company developing and owning those models. And if I can tie it into your question around what's needed, because I think it is actually related, is that kind of critical AI literacy. We hear a lot about the importance of AI literacy and increasing understandings of AI, but what I think is really important is it's that critical literacy. So improving understandings of not just technically how these systems work, but actually the business models behind them, how it affects children's rights, and the impact that those systems have. So I think that's where we need more research, but also what's needed to enable children to make informed choices about how they use those systems.
Loved how you tied in the answer to both questions there, Vari. Saves us a lot of time. Stephen, 15 seconds.
No, what she said.
That's easy. Maria, one thing we can do in research, or one thing companies can do right now?
Yeah, so in research, we are still understanding, right? The long-term impact of this technology, we still don't know, and the literature also reflects this. We have very contradictory results. Some papers saying that AI can improve critical thinking, others saying that AI can actually decrease critical thinking. So I think we are still in a period where we are trying to understand exactly what will be the long-term impact of this technology. And so, yeah, again, what companies should do, I think the girl in the video in the beginning said exactly everything. So the goal cannot be the profits, it must be the people. So I think if companies really focus on the children and developing these tools, targeting and having the children's in mind, we can actually develop good tools for everyone.
Thanks, Maria. The goal should not be the profit, it should be the people. I think that is a great lesson coming out of this session. That's all we have time for. Thank you so much for joining us in the room and online. And please, if you've got any more questions, feel free to approach Stephen and Vari, or get in contact with Maria. And thank you to all the young people that engaged through this session. And thank you from the LEGO Group as well. So we'll end it there, and we'll see you soon. Bye.
Thank you.